This is the all-new Pace 4 from COROS with a bright 1.2-inch AMOELD touchscreen display. It's designed to be extremely lightweight, and yet it's packed to the brim with everything a runner might need, all for $249. Let's take a quick look at what's new here, as well as what's missing from this all-new COROS Pace 4. Okay, I actually kind of think of this COROS Pace 4 as a really nice pair of lightweight training shoes. They're perfect for everyday running and racing, and then for most of my running career, they'd be able to handle pretty much everything I would throw at them. But that doesn't mean that this watch is perfect for everyone. The battery life on this watch here isn't massive, and COROS has updated the screen technology, but there's plenty of you guys, plenty of ultra long distance runners or even outdoor enthusiasts that might want something different than the COROS Pace 4. Let's look at the details here. First things first, this watch is extremely lightweight. I'm weighing it here at about 40 grams, but a lot of that weight is within this silicone band. The watch body itself is only 28 grams. Pairing this watch with a nylon watch band would really cut down the weight a good bit, down to about 32 grams. Now comparing this to the COROS Pace 3 with a nylon watch band, it was about 30 grams, maybe 31 grams here. The watch body being about 26 grams. So I'd say maybe like 2 grams heavier here with this Pace 4. And the watch itself, it is a pretty slim watch. It's about 13.6 millimeters in depth. When you are measuring it with the heart rate sensor, you might actually see 11.8 millimeters when you're looking at some spec sheets on the COROS website. But I do feel like these watch companies should probably include these heart rate sensor bumps when they're measuring the depths of these watches. Either way, I would say that it doesn't feel like a bulky or really even a noticeable watch when you're wearing it day to day, or when I've been wearing it over the past week or so. The COROS Pace 3 was a memory and pixel display. The entire GPS industry, in my mind, seems to be moving towards AMOLED. So no surprise here, the COROS Pace 4 is an AMOLED device. This new display, it's plenty bright with a maximum brightness of 1500 nits. In this screen, I wouldn't say it's massive. It's a 1.2-inch AMOLED screen. And AMOLED screens, they do tend to have a higher resolution. So the old Pace 3 was 240 by 240 pixels. The new Pace 4 is 390 by 390 pixels. And I don't actually think that this extra resolution is massively helpful in this particular scenarios. I actually find the higher resolution displays to be the most beneficial when I'm actually looking at really detailed screens, like a mapping screen, for example, when I'm actually trying to figure out some of those points of interest or just really which way to go on a particular trail. But the COROS Pace 4 does not have full-featured, detailed topographical or landscaping maps. It does have navigation capabilities, and it does have this breadcrumb navigation. COROS also seems to be standardizing on this new 3-button pattern layout, with the digital scroll wheel being at the top right, a back button on the bottom right, and this action button. The action button is on the bottom left. The Pace 3 was just a 2-button layout. The Pace 4 is this new 3-button pattern. Again, from what I'm seeing from COROS with their other new releases, not a huge surprise here. COROS has also been adding microphones to all of their new watches lately. The Nomad and the Apex 4 both recently launched with a microphone. Again, no surprise here, the Pace 4 is also getting a built-in microphone. Right here might be another good place to park. I will say Just because a lot of these updates that are coming from COROS, they're not necessarily super surprising, it doesn't mean that they're not updates that are useful. You can actually set this action button to do a few things, but within the COROS Pace 4, I actually think it's gonna be nice to set it to go directly to creating a pin. Here, check this out. We can be out on a run and just quickly make a voice pin tied to a specific GPS location.
Okay, this looks like a quiet place for fishing.
What's cool is when you get back home and you look at this voice pin, it'll automatically transcribe it and it'll automatically label that based on what you say within the transcription. Now, I do think that it's super easy for us to overlook just how fantastic of a running watch the whole COROS Pace series of watches have been over the past couple of years. In fact, I think a lot of the reviews that I've posted about the COROS Pace series of watches have been extremely complimentary. And I think that the COROS Pace 4 has been super accurate within my testing over the past week or so. Here's a pretty interesting 5-mile run in Kennewick, Washington, where I ran around this little island in the Tri-Cities area. We're comparing the Pace 4 to the Garmin Fenix 8 Pro, which is a watch that cost $1,200. You know, not that a higher priced watch means that it's more precise or anything like that. Here's another run. This is the Washington State cross country meet course. Again, looking at this data, looking closely at the GPS tracks, I think everything looks pretty fantastic. Everything looks like it's staying where it should be. Nothing's going pretty far off track here. None of the turns are causing problems. And I'm actually using this watch in its dual frequency mode, but you can also set this or switch this over to the all systems GPS mode, which will use a little bit less battery, and you can go a little bit longer in that mode. Now, COROS is claiming better battery life here. I'm not so sure if that's accurate. They're claiming up to 41 hours in high GPS mode, which is that all system satellite mode. That's with the always on display turned off. So that's kind of that raise to wake mode. You kind of turn your wrist and the AMOLED display will light up. And then 31 hours with the always on display turned on. And I almost always use AMOLED watches in this always on display mode. Now with max GPS mode or dual frequency mode, COROS is claiming 31 hours or 24 hours with that always on display turned on. So comparing that to the older Pace 3 with a memory and pixel display, which would go up to 38 hours in standard GPS mode. It'll go 25 hours in high GPS mode, which again kind of basically translates to the all systems mode, and it would go 15 hours in max GPS or that dual frequency mode. So what about just wearing it every day? Well, COROS claims 19 days using this raise to wake mode, but again, I like to use it with the always on display turned on, and in this mode, COROS is claiming 6 days. I think it's probably more likely that you'll get 5 days. It just kind of depends on how much GPS you're using, how much you're taking this out for bike rides or long runs. In my experience, with a brand new Pace 3, you could actually get 10 days to 2 weeks on a single charge. So I don't know. I would say that this watch is definitely got some more efficiencies built into it, especially when it comes to the GPS modes, which is nice. I just don't know if I would say that this watch has better battery life than the previous model. And just to be super clear, the new Pace 4 no longer has that basic GPS mode. That was removed. So in all reality, you're picking between the dual band GPS and the all systems GPS here on this watch. And then when charging this watch, this device does come with that new USB keychain style charging adapter that COROS has been kind of standardizing on with their newer watches lately. And these newer watches are not going to be compatible with the older charging cables, even though they kind of look like they almost could work. Actually, real quickly, let's look at what you get in the box here if you do decide that the Pace 4 is the right watch for you. So we've got the Pace 4 watch body, the Pace 4 watch bands, the charging adapter here, and then we have some documentation and some stickers. Now, I tested the heart rate accuracy of the Pace 4 a few different times for both running and biking, and I actually got pretty reliable data. Here's heart rate data from an ECG style heart rate strap connected to a Garmin Enduro 2 watch, and our COROS Pace 4 tracks pretty closely to that. So we're kind of considering our heart rate strap as our control variable, and the COROS Pace 4 with its optical sensor is doing pretty well. I was actually also wearing a Suunto Vertical 2. Complete side tangent here, but this is probably actually the best heart rate data that I've seen from the Vertical 2 in the month or two that I've been testing it. For me, this watch has just it's been a complete mess as far as heart rate data goes. But back to the COROS Pace 4, I only have one tiny spot here to show you from this 5-mile run that I did in Eastern Washington. Again, we're comparing data from an ECG style chest strap that's connected to the Garmin Fenix 8 Pro to the optical sensor on the Pace 4. And there's just this one little spot here, maybe around like the 4-mile marker, where the watch appears to just briefly lock onto my cadence and display a heart rate that's maybe 20 beats too high. And then it kind of locks back down on the correct heart rate again. So overall, what are my thoughts? Well, if you guys have watched this channel for a while, you know I'm a huge fan of this whole COROS Pace series of watches. I've always been a fan. I've always thought that they've just provided tons and tons of value for what you're getting within this watch. So for me, this particular watch update, I'd say it's a little less exciting. And like I mentioned earlier, there's some minor updates here that aren't really a surprise. The addition of a microphone has the potential to be really interesting in the future with some potential software updates. I'd say especially if it ends up getting tied into some sort of futuristic AI tools and you're using the microphone to discuss things with some sort of AI chat helper. But I don't actually think that it'll be immediately as valuable a tool with voice pins and using the microphone for training logs. But maybe that's just me. All of that being said, I do think that this is going to be a great option for a ton of people. I coach about 140 distance runners, and the COROS Pace 4 is just such an easy recommendation for so many people that just want a solid, we'll call it like a modern GPS watch. And I shouldn't belittle it as just a running watch. The Pace 4 has dozens of different sports mode, including triathlon, tons of water sports. There's like windsurfing and speed surfing, snow sports like ski touring, cross-country skiing, various aerobic modes like jump rope and stair climbing and yoga. But I also love that COROS has this really nice smartphone app in this online training dashboard as well. COROS provides free marathon training programs, and they provide really good detailed metrics that if you're like me and you kind of like diving into this stuff, I feel like you're gonna have a lot to work with after each of your workouts and just kind of progressing and tracking all of your training data. I also think that this watch runs into a little bit of a tricky spot when comparing it to COROS's own Pace Pro, which is again, a lightweight running focused GPS watch with a bright AMOELD touchscreen display. Real quickly, for you guys that are actually trying to figure this stuff out, I actually think that the main differences are gonna be the slightly larger screen of the Pace Pro. It's 1.3 inch versus 1.2 inch. And then the addition of maps with that device for a slightly higher price. The Pace Pro also has ECG capabilities. That's not really actually something that I care about that much, to be honest. But the Pace Pro currently costs $350. But get this, the price is actually gonna drop down to $300 on November 14th. So $50 difference here. I don't know. I'd say, honestly, I don't actually use maps that much, but I also don't mind the slightly larger display. I'd say both of these watches are extremely lightweight devices, and the size is not gonna be a huge issue for me. What do you guys think? I think it'd be interesting to make a Pace 4 versus Pace Pro video personally. Let me know if that's something that you guys would be interested in seeing. And let me know what you guys think of the Pace 4 in general. Is this a device that you guys think that you're gonna pick up? If you're watching this video later and you've actually had this watch for a little bit, how are you guys liking it? Let me know in the comment section. Comment section is right below the like button and the subscribe button down here below somewhere. And either way, fancy new COROS watch or no watch at all, I really do hope that you guys are getting out there, getting after it, and we will see you guys on the next one.